Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How about now? All right, I think we're good. Man, this is crazy because I documented what my microphone settings are supposed to be on this thing and made sure that I turn everything on in the right order. Nothing changed since the last time we were together. And then there's no sound, and then I have to change it again. It's annoying. But anyway, now that we got the sound straightened out and you didn't hear my open, I'm just going to say that we're going to get into the Texas water park deal that turned into a big controversy. We're going to talk about Seattle. We're going to talk about the LA mayor's race and the tax the rich crowd that never wants to volunteer their own resources for some strange reason. Of course, I think we all know what that reason is. But welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, where faith in God sets the standard and masculinity is not toxic. Today is Thursday, May 7th in the year of our Lord 2026, and we do have a ton to get into. So let's get after it. But real quick, before we do, please take a second, hit like, subscribe, share all of the share this show and all of these shows on the SHR Media Network. We're in a bit of a big tech tyrant chokehold right now. Our growth is still growing, but we're still growing, but it's slowed down a little bit. And so every click, every share, every comment matters a great deal. And just to remind everybody, this show also is on my personal channel, the Mission Ready Men individual channel. Same briefing, same time, same content, just a different way to access it. So SHR is the home base, but if you're not on the personal channel yet, the individual channel, do me a favor and go ahead over there and subscribe. We're at, I believe, 961. We're trying to get 1,000, and we're closing on it. So I would appreciate it if you would, again, like, subscribe, share, and help us get over that 1,000 subscriber mark there as well. All right. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in because, like I said, we got a ton to get to. One of the big things that happened, and there's a ton to unpack with this story, but Texas, Grand Prairie, Texas, had has a water park called Epic Water Park, and we know about Epic City. There's allegedly no relation. This Epic Water Park is city owned, and so the fact that it's called Epic and then Epic City or the East Plano Islamic Center was trying to put on this event is a coincidence. You know how I feel about coincidences, but some people that I trust in this space have said that it is just that. So we'll see how that shakes out. But anyway, the Epic Water Park in Grand Prairie, Texas is a taxpayer-funded facility. It is funded by a 0.025% sales tax in the city of Grand Prairie. I believe that's the number. And they rented out the park to Epic, East Plano Islamic Center, and they advertised a Muslim-only event. And of course, people got wind of it, and the backlash exploded. And Greg Abbott, broken clock and all that, he stepped in and threatened to rescind some grant funding from them. And the event was canceled. It's amazing to me how, because they flipped it after the backlash, they flipped it. It was advertised as Muslim only, and then all of a sudden they switched it up. And we're going to look at the flyers here in a second. But then they switched it and said that everyone was welcome. And then after the funding was threatened to be pulled, then all of a sudden they said, well, you know what? It's not worth it. We're going to go ahead and cancel it. Epic Waters. They like I said, they advertised this event, and the original promotional package said Muslim only. And there's a bunch of leftists out there and apologists who, hey, Lindsay, this message, I saw this message, so I have to mention it. Lindsay, or her name is Elise. She's trying to get closer to God, and she needs some advice and help, and she's only 16. Send me a message to missionreadymen@gmail.com, and we will talk with you. And also, somebody is asking for a prayer request. And we will talk to you about that as well. All right, that's more important than all this other stuff. So yeah, they advertised this Muslim-only event, and a lot of the leftists out there were saying that they never advertised it, and after the controversy and they switched it up, they would point to it on their website and say, see, it's not Muslim only, everyone's welcome. Well, this is the original flyer that they sent out. And yeah, I know it's kind of tough to see. There you go. Right up here in the top right corner, Muslim only event. And down here, for Muslims only, a family-friendly environment. Halal food will be served with food ticket. And so, of course, once the backlash hit and they took that down and switched it up and said everyone's welcome, they had another flyer that they put out. And yeah, this one, let's go ahead and do this, because this one has both of them side by side. So we have that one, Muslim only. Then they switched it up and said, modest dress only. Come and celebrate Eid with us, all are welcome. Modest dress code required. And so people saw that and said, oh, you're lying, they didn't advertise a Muslim only event, blah, blah, blah. Well, that is patently false, because there was a screenshot. I don't have the actual screenshot of the website, but on Facebook, somebody posted a scroll of that, of the flyer. So let's look at that real quick. And there it is on their Facebook page, Muslim only event. I think has since been taken down. And of course, when you call this out to everybody, they don't have anything to say after that. This, and just so that we're clear, this was, or the East Plano, or the Epic Waters in Grand Prairie is a taxpayer-funded facility, like I said. And so that's where the backlash comes, because nobody cares. Nobody cares if they want to celebrate whatever occasion this is. It has something to do with the Hajj or the pilgrimage to Mecca, whatever the case is. Nobody cares if they want to celebrate that. The issue comes in where American taxpayers are forced to fund this nonsense and then aren't allowed into the facility. And of course, nobody wants to go in there and celebrate this madness anyway. But here's the thing. Would any of this have been tolerated at all if a Christian group rented out Epic Waters and advertised a Christian-only event? You and I both know everyone on the left would be screaming, separation of church and state, blah, blah, blah. Everyone would be screaming that it was discriminatory. Everyone would be screaming all kinds of nonsense. But Muslims do it, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. And then they, like I said, they revamped it, reworked it so that it didn't say Muslim only, modest dress code, all that. That tells you that they understood that this was a problem. And here's the other thing. This was actually the third year that they did this. This was the third annual Eid celebration, or however you pronounce it. And what this tells me is that people are starting to notice what's happening. People are starting to notice the takeover. And I know people have a problem with me using that word, whatever. I'm using the words that they use themselves. And I'm not going to play it again, but we played all the different imams, not all, obviously, but we played a number of different imams saying the exact same thing. And so if you choose not to believe them, that's on you. But that is their goal. And so, like I said, Abbott stepped in, sent a formal letter to the mayor of Grand Prairie, told him that if they didn't cancel this event, that they would pull $530,000 worth of grants from the city. Now, some people are arguing because they paid for the facility and they're renting it out that it's perfectly legal for them to discriminate based on religion. I disagree. I'm hoping, well, they canceled it so that it probably won't go to court, but if there are any lawyers out there who want to weigh in, please feel free. Like I said, I I still think it was illegal and unconstitutional. I've gotten into a couple of Twitter discussions on the subject. It is, to me, it is a constitutional issue. And for whatever reason, Greg Abbott decided to step in and enforce the issue. I'm kind of surprised, but because it got such national exposure from people like Sarah Gonzalez and Amy Mack and a few other people, I think his hand was kind of forced. He probably apologized to his donors for doing it, but the fact is he can no longer say that nobody noticed. He can no longer just let this stuff slide because people are starting to notice. People are starting to pay attention. Facilities that are funded by, and this is a quote from Greg Abbott, facilities that are funded by all taxpayers are not just for a subset of Texans. And he's right. But given his track record, I still question the sincerity of any of that. Do I have the, yeah, so they, after the threat of losing money came down, they decided to cancel it. And their statement says, after further review and in the best interest of the city of Grand Prairie, the June 1st Ide event at Epic Waters Indoor Water Park has been canceled. I'm not at a loss. They thought this would be a good idea because it had happened in the two previous years, and nobody said anything, or nobody with any juice said anything. There may have been some protests, but it didn't. It obviously went nowhere until Sarah Gonzalez from the Blaze and a few other people stepped in and said, "Not today." So if it was something that was completely normal, completely harmless, I would imagine that the mayor would have stood up and said, well, okay, fine. But the fact that they cancel it tells you a lot, because they caved under the political pressure. And like I said before, most people don't care if Muslims, whatever they want to celebrate, in private, in their mosques. The controversy isn't that they do it. The controversy is the fake neutrality. The controversy is that people are starting to see that the accommodations and the exceptions only go in one direction. They're starting to see that the money that these organizations like CARE and all the rest of them throw around, they're starting to see that that is making an impact. And they don't want that. And so the objections that may have taken place in the previous years didn't matter because it didn't affect them politically. And losing $500,000 in grants, that could have an effect politically. Now, I want to zoom out a little bit because this is not just Texas, and we're going to get into everything that's happening across the country. Boston, Mayor Wu, who is of Chinese descent and who I believe is a plant installed by the CCP, is using the full force of her office as mayor to advance the Red-Green Alliance. And I've talked about that before, the alliance between the radical left and the radical Islamists. The full force of her office and the public resources to advance it. What they're doing is launching MENA Heritage Month. MENA is Middle East, North Africa. So they launched this taxpayer-supported Middle East, North Africa Heritage Month. And that is obviously dangerous. And it's obviously something that should not be happening. And there's a parallel. There's a direct parallel between that and what's happening in New York City. New York City they just elected Mamdani, who pals around with the people who helped plan and execute 9/11. And in Boston, they are celebrating the culture that brought them the Boston Marathon bombing. The Tsarnaev brothers were Muslims, and that was a terrorist attack, an Islamic terrorist attack. And now they're celebrating it. The supporters will say that this is harmless. Cultural inclusion doesn't mean anything. We just want to make people feel welcome and at home and all the rest of that nonsense. But people who see this clearly see that these institutions, these offices, these politicians, or these institutions in particular, are behaving less like neutral civic facilities and more like ideological marketing campaigns. And there is an explosion of these heritage months, especially when it comes to Islam and Middle Eastern heritage months and all that. These people have completely abandoned the idea of American citizens being a priority. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're electing a lot of these people who are advancing this agenda. There are a ton of red states right now. A ton of red states. And this is kind of sad to me. A ton of red states that have made April Arab American Heritage Month or MENA, whatever the case may be. I mean, we just had a resolution passed in the House in support of designating April as a national Arab American Heritage Month. And of course, you can guess who supported that. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. What's the other one from Boston? Baldy. Yeah, I can't think of her name, but the squad. And so states have followed suit. Alabama in April declared April Arab American Heritage Month. Alaska, Arizona, Katie Hobbs, that's to be expected. Who else? Yes, Arkansas, my new state. Sarah Huckabee Sanders in April, signed a proclamation declaring April Arab American Heritage Month. That strikes me as very odd. Not just because her dad is Mike Huckabee and he is right now serving as the ambassador to Israel, but Arkansas has been one of the many reasons that it attracted us to Arkansas was that it was reliably conservative. And now I'm seeing signs that they're bending the knee just like all these other places. And that is disheartening to me. Allegedly conservative governments are adopting these same left-wing institutional patterns that are not going to end well for us if we continue to allow this. And it keeps happening because for some reason people are afraid of being labeled a Islamophobe. But it's not a phobia when you understand that these people hate you, hate everything you stand for, want to kill you, and are not quiet about it. They're not quiet about it. They will tell you every chance they get. But nobody wants to have people outraged against them. Nobody wants media pressure. Nobody wants HR complaints. Nobody wants to deal with online accusations of hatred and bigotry and all the rest of that happens. Dealing with this, when I was commenting on this Epic Waters thing yesterday, I got called all kinds of names. I don't care, because I know that I'm standing on the truth. And again, just imagine if there was a Christian-only swim event at one of these, at a water park like that, or if there was a Christian American Heritage Month. People would lose their minds. They would lose their minds. A publicly funded Christian event? Come on. There are police recruitment videos going around in Houston and other places centered around Islamic recruitment. Imagine if there was one like that that centered around Christian recruitment for police officers or fire departments or whatever the case may be. Like I said, people would lose their minds. This is bigger than Texas. This is bigger than one event that was successfully canceled. This is bigger than, it's bigger than all of that. It is these institutions, these agencies that are reorganizing themselves around identity, heritage campaigns, symbolic accommodations, protected constituencies. And we all know how that goes. Instead of trying to figure out how to treat people equally across the board, they're pandering to this ideology. They don't want to, they try to avoid offending certain groups. You can offend Christians all you want, but better not offend the alphabet mafia or the Islamists. There is a biblical basis for this. There is a biblical basis for opposing this Islamic takeover. Deuteronomy 28, 43 and 44 warns us about the sojourner rising and becoming the head. And that is a curse for the nation of Israel being disobedient. And you can see that parallel in this country. This country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. The Bible is the most quoted source in all of our founding documents. And so the fact that so many have fallen away and completely rebel against biblical principles, I think that applies. Daniel 11:16 talks about Assyrian king conquering the land of Israel and the Israelites not being able to stand against it. We're able to stand against it right now, but if we continue this apathetic attitude, saying it could never happen, well, guess what? We're going to look up one day and it will have happened. And I always talk about how it's not a phobia. Nehemiah 4:14 says, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." It's not about fear. It's about understanding the threat. And make no mistake, Islam is a threat. Period. End of story. One of the biggest lies that has been told to us is that diversity is our strength. America can handle diversity, true diversity. America has always handled true diversity. But this forced version of diversity is toxic. And it will destroy us, because the idea of diversity, this forced diversity, the people who are running these public institutions that are in charge of all this, they don't apply standards evenly. So there's that. And then there's, like I mentioned before, the complacency. It'll never happen here. That's what's happening in Texas. Seems like that's what's happening in Arkansas. And we got to stand up against it. All right. I want to let's move on. I actually didn't spend as much time on that as I thought. There's a lot more for us to get into if I really wanted to, but let's go ahead and move on. But before we move on to something else, before we move on, it tangentially touches on Islam, but not really. But I want to get a word in from the sponsor for today's show. And our sponsor for today's show is the SHR Media Shop. So if you want to support this network and rep your favorite shows, head over to the SHR shop, shrmedia.com. Click on the banner at the top of the page. You'll find the show shirts. You'll find the official SHR mug, the limited edition 250 Reasons to Read Source Documents t-shirt. It is a limited edition. And so if you want to check that out, that's a fantastic shirt. Head over there and pick yourself one up. It celebrates America's 250th anniversary, which is coming up very soon. And because defending liberty, defending the Constitution starts with understanding the documents that created it. So visit the SHR shop and grab yours today. All right. Tax the rich. Chase out all the money. Mock the people for leaving. That is a brilliant and all too often used economic strategy. The mayor of Seattle basically told billionaires who want to leave, bye, which is crazy. But that's the mindset of these people. And Zohran Mamdani, I'm not going to play the video, but you saw the video where he basically doxed Ken Griffin with his and advertising his tax the rich policy. And he's supposed to be, he's marketing himself as this champion of the downtrodden. But he graduated from Bowdoin College. His mother is an internationally acclaimed filmmaker, and his father is a well-respected professor at Columbia. He comes from money. He's the guy that he wants the voters to hate. He's the guy. He and his ilk, they try to frame wealth as a moral failure rather than economic fuel and incentive. And after that debacle with the video, Ken Griffin pushed back, and he pushed back pretty hard, and it was pretty good to watch. This was one of the sound bites that he had. I don't know if I'm going to get to all of them, but let's take a listen to this.
Really poor taste. The tax.
Okay, I have to ask you about New York City and what you're going to do after the mayor posted that video outside your apartment, one of your apartments in New York City, and demonized you, advertising his beatitude tax. How'd you react to that when you first saw it?
Oh, I actually had to see it a second time because the first time I couldn't believe what I was watching. And I'll tell you, it took a moment to digest what I was watching. What really upset me about the video was the fact that he put me in harm's way. You know, he seems to have forgotten another American company was assassinated where I live in New York. And to put any citizen in harm's way is just inappropriate for one of our political leaders.
And he's absolutely, and he's going to pay a pretty steep price. He's going to pay a pretty steep price for that, because on in another and loot basis, and he's now going to leave flippant response when asked about billionaires leaving Seattle.
I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown, and if the ones that leave, like, bye. So.
Wow. This was after this quote was after she told people to boycott Starbucks. And they did. And then Starbucks said, you know what? We're leaving. They are moving to Tennessee, a state that appreciates and respects business. I just as an aside, I used to have an IT consulting business, and one of my customers was Seattle's Best Coffee. Seattle's Best Coffee blew away Starbucks. I don't know if they're still in existence or not, but Starbucks may have bought them out. I'm not sure, but Starbucks coffee's terrible anyway. Anyway. She has this flippant response about billionaires leaving, taking their businesses with them. No concern about the shrinking tax base. No concern about the businesses relocating, no concern about anything, just spewing these activist applause lines that are going to do nothing except damage your city and run it into the ground. Cities thrive on investment from wealthy people. I don't know about you, but I've never gotten a job from a poor person. It doesn't work that way. And I don't know this woman's background. I don't even know if she's ever had a job. I think she lives with her parents still. So take that for what it's worth. But the economic viability of these cities depends on millionaires and billionaires expanding their businesses, adding jobs, being able to project revenue so that they can expand. But they punish success. They punish the people who they need to build these businesses. And then they're shocked and flippant when their policies drive these people away. Tax the rich. It sounds great until they need somebody to fund the pension fund or fund whatever the city may need. Real quick, I just want to mention this. Since we started off talking about New York, Mamdani's wife, Rama Duali, I think her name is, she ran into an Israeli woman in a cafe the other day. And I'm sure you all are well aware of Mamdani's wife's hatred for the Jews, hatred for Israel. And so this was actually pretty funny. Let's go ahead and listen to this woman, and then we'll talk about it.
Guess who sat next to me at a cafe in New York? None other than Zohran Mamdani's wife, Rama Duwaji. The same Rama Duwaji who posted horribly anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, and terror-sympathizing things not that long ago, and also apologized for it. But here's the funny thing. She was willing to take a photo with me until she found out that I was Miss Israel, until I told her that as an Israeli, I was disappointed in seeing the kind of rhetoric she was promoting online. But I told her that part of my ideology as an Israeli is to have productive dialogue in which one side is not constantly dehumanized. But despite that, despite the setting being calm, the moment she found out I was Israeli, she refused to have a conversation with me. So that poses the question, if you can publicly apologize for dehumanizing Israelis, but you can't actually get yourself to humanize one when you come face to face with them in real life, what does that say about you? And what does that say about the state of our politics, considering that that is the wife of the mayor of New York City?
Says a lot. Says a whole lot. Now, the encounter wasn't violent, obviously, or explosive in any way, but she just displayed an obvious contempt and refused to engage any further once she found out that this woman was Israeli. And I bring that up to say that she mentioned that it's the wife of the mayor of New York. Spouses do not have hive minds, but and her behavior doesn't necessarily automatically prove guilt by association. However, we cannot pretend that the ideological like-mindedness isn't there, because it's obvious that it is. He's made it obvious with his associations. He's made it obvious with his statements. Married couples usually, Mary Madeline and James Carville notwithstanding, usually share political worldviews. And just as an example of that, he took down a website promoting New York City's business ties with Israel. He has vowed to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he showed up in New York. Good luck with that. He is as rabid an anti-Semite as she is. He pals around with people who helped plan and execute 9/11. The chief counsel in his office defended the 9/11 hijackers. It's pretty obvious. So you have to, given all of that evidence, given everything that's going on, you have to question, and it's not even really a question at this point, honestly, but you have to question his positions on Israel and his anti-Semitism, which I think is pretty much on full display at this point. And economically, it's going to factor in quite a bit in the downfall that is coming for New York City. And make no mistake, it is coming. All right, let's go back to Seattle for a second. I talked last week, or the last time we were together, about Katie Wilson and her desire to get rid of all the police cameras because it was somehow, well, you know what, let's listen to what she had to say. I think I have it here. Yeah, here we go. Let's listen to her again. There we go.
This is legislation that will expand CCTV cameras, that could potentially be taken control of by the Trump administration. And this is legislation that was opposed by immigrants' rights groups, by civil liberties groups, and by the members.
Now she didn't do this, but behind her is a video of these two thugs beating up this 77-year-old man as she's railing against the surveillance cameras that they have that helped catch one of these perps.
Of color caucus in the legislature. And I'll quote from their letter. This technology, and technology similar to it, has recently been in the news for its failure to be meaningfully and consistently secured, leading to breaches that could result in sensitive data being shared by ICE and putting our immigrant and refugee communities at risk.
Now, I'm not going to get into the surveillance aspect of this, other than to say that they caught the guy based on this video and then let him go. And as of this morning, when I last checked, he's still in the wind. His partner has been caught since. But this goes to the aspect of the left and their complete unwillingness to punish criminals. And it's not even an unwillingness. They count on criminals to keep people in fear and to keep people dependent on them. That's what it's all about. And that's why these arrests, when they happen, even in the case where the guy is on video committing the act, that's why these arrests and these punishments are so temporary. There's no consequences. Last time we were together, I played the other video where he gave the mayor a shout out because he knew he was going to get out. We've seen this play out far too many times. Arrest, released even before the officers finish the paperwork. And then they fail to appear until they're arrested again for another more vicious crime. Public safety for these people is a complete joke. They don't care about public safety. They don't care about you. And we're going to get into an example of that later on with the LA mayor debate. That was that was a verbal beatdown, if there ever was one, and kind of shocking too when you think about it. But we'll get into that later. But they just don't care. They don't care. Violent offenders, they get treated like, I don't know, a management problem, not the threats that they actually are. And people who just want to live their lives, they're having to change their habits because they just don't trust that they're going to be kept safe by these people. Because they're not. They're, as I just said, their safety is of no consequence to them. None. If it was, bail reform wouldn't have been a thing. If it was, pretrial release policies wouldn't be a thing. prosecutorial discretion wouldn't be a thing. Spit it out. There wouldn't be any of this failure to appear nonsense. It wouldn't be tolerated. But here we are. Arrest used to mean something. It used to mean something. Now it's just a speed bump for these thugs. They just seem unwilling. Not seem, they are unwilling. We've already established they're unwilling to actually punish people. And yeah, I know that we just saw the death penalty imposed on that guy, which we will probably talk about on the Saturday show. And yeah, there is a show on Saturdays now at 8 p.m. Central, the weekend debrief. So be sure to check that out as well. But they don't. It's mind-boggling to me that they just don't care. I mean, I understand intellectually why they do it, but it's still mystifying that kind of ideology even has been allowed to fester. Because everyone should want to be kept safe and to keep the people under their protection safe. But that just seems to escape these people. And it's sad. All right, I got a couple of more things I want to get to. And let's, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I was gonna talk about this last, but I wanna get into this now since we were talking about public safety. And the race for LA's mayor is turning out to be a lot more entertaining and interesting than I thought it ever could be. I'm not sure if this guy has much of a chance, but he is making some waves. And based on what I've seen, I believe between 70 and 80% of the people who were polled believe that he handily won the debate last night. And I'm talking about the LA mayor's race. Spencer Pratt running as a Republican, Karen Bass, who is an avowed communist and who people suspect of masterminding the 1983 Capitol bombing. Everyone says there's no evidence of it, but you know how that goes. But anyway, and then a city councilman whose name escapes me at the moment, we're debating last night. And Spencer Pratt got into this because of, and I didn't pull this, but I'm gonna see if I can find it. He had one of the, or he has had a few amazing ads. One of them I think was an AI generated by a PAC or something like that. I'm not sure, but another one was a pretty good, effective ad. But he got into this race because his house burned down in the Palisades fire, and his parents' house burned down, and he had some friends who ended up burning alive during this fire, and he had enough. And Karen Bass, she before the debate, she went after him a little bit, and it was actually pretty pretty lowbrow, I'd say, the way she went after him. And she basically accused him of trying to capitalize on people's grief. And yeah, here is Karen Bass talking about that. Here we go.
Honestly, before this, I had never heard of Spencer Pratt. So
well, you aren't missing out on anything, so it's okay, but please go on.
Exactly. But the thing I am concerned and feel about him is that I feel like he's exploiting the grief of people in the Palisades. And I think that's right. Reprehensible. That's the main thing. And I think he is about his own celebrity. He's famous now again.
But I thought she had no idea who he was. And now she says he's famous again. So what she fails to understand is that he's dealing with grief himself. Friends who were killed during that fire. His house he's living in a trailer. His house burned down, his parents' house burned down. So it's not just, I don't believe he's trying to capitalize on anyone's grief. I think he's pissed. He's pissed and he is trying to do something about it. And the fact that her performance during the whole thing was abysmal. Nothing's been rebuilt. And it seems like they're trying to rezone everything so that it can become a commercial, more of a commercial area rather than residential. She says that that's exploiting grief. So I didn't know that there was a debate until I saw the news this morning, and I pulled a few clips this morning before it threw my prep for this thing all off. But regardless, let's maybe, like I said, it threw my prep all off, but I really wanted to get into this. Here we go. I think. Yeah, this is one of the clips. This is one of the clips from the debate, and it's a pretty straightforward question, and the only one who has any real answer to it is Spencer Pratt.
Allowed to vote in local elections. Is this a yes or no, Mr. Pratt?
No.
Mayor Bass?
It depends. It's not a yes or no.
Depends on what?
Well, first of all, when you say non-citizens, it doesn't mean they're here illegal. It doesn't mean they're undocumented. They could have green cards.
Regardless, they shouldn't be allowed to vote, period. Full stop. Legally, illegally, green card, unless they are an American citizen, they should not be voting in any election. Local, county, state, whatever the case, but
could be here perfectly legal, and there's a lot of states and cities that do that on very, very local elections. We have to see what the councilman is proposing.
Councilmember Bremen.
Yeah, I would say, again, it does depend. In other places, school boards have non-citizens.
Yes or no?
Non-citizens who vote.
Mr. Pratt, I have a question for you. You told NBC News.
So he says no, period, point blank. No, they should not be voting in our elections. And the other two had Kamala-like word salads. And so there was that, but then there was this one. He absolutely, he eviscerated verbally, obviously, Karen Bass. And this was also, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a bunch of clips, and I'm not going to play all the clips that I found, but this one was pretty good. And for some reason, my screen went away. There we go.
To the Mayor Karen Bass's, the 1,000 firefighters that were available, but there was no engines for them because of the $17 million that Chief Crowley had asked the mayor for 9 weeks before, and Mayor Karen Bass denied it. So they may have been available, but they didn't have the equipment they needed. Not to mention Janice Quinones, who Mayor Karen Bass put into her position of power at the LADWP. She drained both of these reservoirs that these firefighters needed to put out these fires. A lot of people will talk about climate change and hurricane force winds. The winds in the Pacific Palisades never reached higher than 40 miles per hour. For those first 6 hours, they didn't go above 27 miles per hour. So without those two reservoirs filled with 117 million gallons and 5 million gallons, these firefighters had to fly all the way to Malibu and Encino to get water. So that, to me, is the most dangerous thing that the mayor put us up against.
He just came with facts. And she went on to try and say that he lied about the winds, but that's something you can easily verify. And he told him to go ahead and just look it up. And of course, it turns out she was lying. And he called her a liar and got called out by the moderators saying that there was no name calling, even though just before that she had called him a liar. So there's that. Now, I don't know if you know who Spencer Pratt is, but he was on some reality show back in the day in his teens or 20s or something like that. And he married some chick who ended up getting a ton of plastic surgery. I don't know if they're still together or not. It's not really relevant to the story, but that was where the reference to that Karen Bass had to his being famous again came in, because I guess they as a couple were pretty well known back then. Fast forward to now, I would have never seen this coming from him, because all of their public appearances, they were kids. So I probably shouldn't even really say it. I would never see this coming, but they were kids and they acted like kids. But he is what the founders envisioned when they wanted people to get involved in politics, and he's doing it. And he's doing it. I mean, I've heard it described that it was a master class. I didn't watch all of it, so I didn't see everything. But I've heard it described as a master class in debate. He just came with facts and spoke from the heart, and we'll see if it moves the needle. We'll see if it moves the needle. There was I think there was one other clip I wanted to show. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's just go ahead and let's go ahead and listen to this one. Watch this one.
As mayor, I'm going to add 20 dip sites all around the communities connecting to pools. So God forbid the water system goes down again, these dip sites that will be connected to individuals' pools will fill up for the helicopters to have water.
Mayor Bass, do you have a response to that? Absolutely. He's saying several things that are completely inaccurate. First of all, there was one reservoir that was out of commission. He is correct. 1 million years ago, it was for wildfires, but over the last 30, 40 years, it's
I'm pretty sure I remember there being at least 2 reservoirs that were drained.
It's been for drinking water. He talked about the winds. That is just completely inaccurate. If that were accurate, then the planes would have been able to fly. And so the winds reach close to 100 miles
I don't know what happened there. I'm not even sure how long you guys were looking at a black screen. But let's continue.
To fly. So if there were reservoirs, if that reservoir had been open, it would not have worked. We had 2 other reservoirs totaling 8 billion gallons that were available, but could not fly.
Yes, she mentioned me. So she's an incredible liar. Everyone on their phones, Google it. 40 weather stations in the Pacific Palisades. It never went above 40 miles per hour. She is referencing the Altadena fire.
I have to interrupt you. No name calling,
She just
please.
lied, though.
Yeah, but no name calling.
She called me a liar.
But she just lied. Can't call out facts with these people. So yeah, that's I'm pulling for this kid. He's probably in his 40s. I'm pulling for him. I hope he can pull it out, because LA is a disaster. And they talked about the homelessness. Maybe I'll pull some clips for Saturday to talk about that as well, because there's a couple other things I want to get to here today before we go. But yeah, LA is already a disaster. If Karen Bass wins re-election, or this other city councilman wins, I hate to see what it would look like in another 4 years, because it's already terrible. So let's pray that Spencer Pratt actually wins and does what he can as mayor to bring LA back at least. And then let's pray that reasonable Republican, and I know people have problems with both of the Republicans running for governor, but either one of them has got to be better than Mussolini, right? I haven't paid attention to the gubernatorial race. The only reason why I even paid attention to this is because it was all over my feed, and it was, people were talking about it so much. More so than the gubernatorial debate, which I saw clips of, but yeah, whatever. But we'll see. One other thing I wanted to get to before we get you out of here. There is a story going around that Republicans are trying to recruit John Fetterman. And I don't really understand why. I don't get it. From what I've read, it seems like this order came down from President Trump himself. It's ridiculous. John Fetterman is what most people would consider a reasonable Democrat. He doesn't want to see the president hurt. He supports Israel. And people seem to forget that he's Jewish. So of course he supports Israel. Well, I shouldn't say that, because the governor of Pennsylvania is kind of lukewarm on Israel, if he supports them at all. But he's calling for people to tone down the fiery rhetoric. He doesn't support Graham Plattner in Maine. He's just a reasonable Democrat. But that's not a reason to try and recruit him and get him to leave the Democrat Party and caucus, become an independent and caucus with Republicans. It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of time. He's not an independent, and he's certainly not a Republican. He's not a conservative by any stretch. He just isn't a lunatic, which is shocking for me to say based on some of his positions before he had his stroke. I don't know. And Republicans are trying to recruit him. Democrats are attacking him. And because he's not a rabid progressive on Israel and voter ID and political extremism and border security, because he's one of those Democrats that you used to be able to describe as loving the country and just having a different perspective on how to make the country better. I don't know if that's completely true, but it's more true for him than it is for most of his other colleagues. We'll put it that way. And another fairly reasonable Republican, Van Jones, actually, I think I have that clip. Van Jones was actually defending him, saying that it was crazy that the left is attacking him the way they are. Yeah, here we go. I think. Well, anyway, like I said, Van Jones, he is another reasonable-ish Democrat who understands that the Democrats, the left, has gone completely insane and should not be forcing out Democrats who disagree on this issue or that issue. But here's the other thing that people don't seem to want to acknowledge on either side. He says things that breaks with the Democrat orthodoxy on some things. But he still overwhelmingly, 93% of the time, votes with Democrats. He's not a Republican. He's not an independent. Trying to recruit him to leave the Democrat Party, to become an independent and caucus with Republicans is a complete waste of time, energy, and effort. It makes no sense. They're trying to flip him to chase a headline. But the outcome, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But because Trump derangement syndrome has the gravitational pull of a black hole and dominates leftist politics, they go all in. You're either 100% for the Democrat agenda or you're not. And there's a really good chance that because he's not 100% all in and resisting that gravitational pull on certain issues, that the Democrats will abandon him and he either won't seek re-election because he knows he won't have the money, or they will primary him to no end and get him out in favor of someone who actually is going to toe that line. And I think that's probably what the rationale behind trying to recruit him is. But Again, as I said, it makes absolutely no sense. John Fetterman did not become a conservative. And it's on both sides. This is not unique to John Fetterman, because if you deviate from the approved narrative on either side, your side is going to kick you to the curb. And in some cases, it's deserved. Let's be honest. In some cases, it's deserved. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, they went off the deep end, and they were traitors to the conservative cause. But the Democrats, they swooped in and tried to get them to leave the Republican Party and caucus with them. It happens on both sides. Even Mitt Romney, who they said was a dangerous extremist in 2012, once he started to push back against Trump a little bit, they scooped him. They tried to scoop him up too. And to a lesser extent, Marjorie Taylor Greene, there were some rumblings, but she was still considered toxic on both sides. Nobody stops to actually ask any questions. Really. It's become an exercise in projection. People are reacting these days to vibes instead of votes and policies and voting records and evidence. Saying one semi-normal thing as a Democrat counts as radical conservatism, according to them. And it's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. All right, y'all. Let's try to get you out of here. You have been watching the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network. I am Big E, and on the SHR Media Network, you can catch my good friend Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He's been having a little technical difficulties, but he will be back on Monday. He'll be back on Monday, and then we'll play it by ear and see what happens in the meantime. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. BZ, the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, which means he will be on tonight. So be sure to check him out. And Beer and Bolstein with Lyle Armstrong every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And again, as a reminder, the Mission Ready Men Weekend Debrief will be on this Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Time. That is 7 p.m. Eastern. No, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's time for me to go. Anyway, be sure to like and subscribe and share all of these great shows, and continue to pray that we reach as many people as we possibly can and have a continued breakthrough and continue to grow. We are closing in on 1,500 subscribers on SHR, so please be sure to like and subscribe and share. And that's going to do it for this briefing. We're not just here to bloviate and complain. We're here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into future generations. If anything that we said here today matters to you, please be sure, as I said, to share this show, bring another guy into the fight, like, subscribe, share. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors and check out all of the great designs that we have there that talk about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And while you're there, you can click on the SHR shop and check out all of the great designs that we have there as well. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.